co-producer and co-founder, Mr. Jay Martinez across the desk from us.
Not as always.
Not as always.
I will be this month, guys.
Indeed.
But, yeah.
We're as always as we're going to get with you.
Yeah.
Of course, our big producer behind the big D over there, that's Mr. Steve Johnson, always sitting in a different seat.
Hey.
How's Steve feeling today?
I'm good. I'm still wearing the button up. So,
I like it. I like everybody looks very snazzy today. We have a very special guest in here today. Longtime friend, longtime listener, first time caller, I guess we're going to call him. That would be Mr. Sergio over here on my left. Hi, Sergio. How you feeling today? Tell the world hello.
Fantastic. Healthy.
We also have our honorary member, Courtney,
Indeed,
who is watching.
We always appreciate. We've got a lot of people that follow the show weekly. So let's get right into it so that we do not drag on your night. Episode 42, The Gamble of Free Trade and Tax Shelters. On this week's episode, we will discuss the proposed agreement to overhaul NAFTA as the U.S.-Mexico-Canada Agreement, or USMCA, very original, already being sold as an implemented victory to the ill-informed.
Like the YMCA.
It kind of, or I think it's like U.S. Marine Corps Association. I think it's a charity.
Got
it. While most critics say it didn't change much, everyone agrees that it is not final and it is not perfect. Most agreements should be updated every so often to make them better, not branded. The New York Times detailed in about 14,000 words about the tax fraud and shell companies set up to protect the wealth of Fred and Mary Trump's children. I imagine you can guess who those children are. Going so far... Very small loan. Going so far as to say that Donald was removed as the executor of his father's estate for trying to unilaterally change his will. His father caught on and had his daughter hire a new lawyer to fix it. So $1 million paid back with interest suddenly became $483 million tax-free.
That's in today's money.
That's in today's money, too.
And I read somewhere that he was a millionaire like at age 8.
Yeah,
he was making $200,000 by the age of 2.
He was also very poor.
So yeah, I love the fact that he just picked himself up from the bootstraps and made himself a made man and living the American dream, right? We all made $200,000 at 2 years old, right?
I wonder if he knows what his nails look like. The courts are still in play as the FBI scope into Judge Kavanaugh is limited by the administration almost to the point of being obsolete. They have not even interviewed Dr. Christine Ford. The current court of 8 has about half its docket filled, including some cases that could affect the power and reach of the government for decades to come, specifically Gamble versus the United States. Please join us. Comment live. Special guest Sergio B over here. He's going to be dropping some bits of knowledge on us every once in a while.
Name.
He probably could. Subscribe to us on YouTube.
You just made his day.
Subscribe to us on YouTube. Share on Facebook. Like us, and we'll love you for it. Getting right into it.
Before you start, Miss Baldiaki's watching us. So
ooh, Miss Baldiaki.
Very special hello.
Very special hello to you, my dear.
Watching us from her iPhone.
Well, we certainly appreciate anybody watching anywhere. And one of the first things we're going to discuss, because this was the most recent news and might not be the most important, but we have the update to NAFTA, which is something that Donald Trump had gone on and on and on about the entire campaign, probably even talked about it a lot when Clinton had gotten the agreement passed. The North American Free Trade Agreement, supposed to have established a free trade between the U.S., Mexico, and Canada with setups for dispute resolution, labor rules, and things like that, what portions of stuff can be made where. And now Trump says he has overhauled it completely. Everybody else says very few changes. He just wanted to put his name on something, and now he gets to go after a Clinton instead of just an Obama. Just to throw it out there, obviously the two of you have a bit of Hispanic heritage in your blood, and
you don't?
We all do.
Okay.
But mine just happens to be from a different continent.
Just because you left out your second last name on the thing doesn't mean you're not.
It's just too much. It wouldn't fit
Don't
on the
try
screen.
to hide it.
It wouldn't fit on the screen. I am a Rodriguez. It's true.
Okay.
So what does it does something like this? Does anybody think that this is in any way motivated by ethnicity or race, anything like that, or is this strictly about the economics and about making sure that America wins out or gets the better hand in this deal?
Who's going first?
So I will add one thing to this. Before Trump came along, there were a lot of people that were not happy with the NAFTA deal or saw room for improvement.
Agreed.
Now, the other thing is there are certain requirements on steel needing to be produced here, I think.
At the moment, the tariffs remain in place unless a certain percentage of the product is built in America, but Canada is allowing more dairy imports in, is throttling the export of vehicles to the United States, and Mexico is doing basically the same thing. So
Right.
they're taking in more of our stuff and sending less of their stuff to America. That's, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, yes, it's great for us. It's good. That's, I mean, I can't say
look,
that Donald Trump did something wrong here.
But that's what I mean. Like, you know, we're going to get to in a minute all the fuck ups of the week. But, like, I'm not mad at this. Like, we thought he was going to, like, ruin the whole North
Continent.
America. Yeah, that's what I mean. So, you know, if there's a little better deal for people here, if he didn't ruin it, maybe he ruined the relationship with us in Canada, maybe not. But, you know, right. if it gets us buying more milk or more, or it gets more steel jobs created here, I'll take it.
So I haven't had a chance to read up on it and see what like the experts have to say about it. I don't know how.
Well, you just heard me talk.
And I don't know how it's gonna like line up with the current tariffs that we have in place now, because I know like that kind of like, at least for the tax cuts, it's kind of like negated some of the impact that it would have had. What I'm more pissed off about is that
like Joe mentioned, Joey, my friend Joey's watching, just tuned in. He's been waiting all week to
What's up, Joe? It's basically just a rebranding. He didn't really change anything, and not to take away the good that has been changed. I think right now there's a provision.
It's basically a renegotiation.
Yes, and which should have been done. I think NAFTA is 20 years old, 20-something years old. So there's a provision now in the bill that I think it has to come up for review by all 3 members every 6 years. I think that's appropriate. I think that now it went from like 60-something% to like 70-something% that of the car has to be made in the U.S. to have, to be, eligible under the trade agreement, to be free of tariffs. I think he increased the minimum wage of workers that work in the car industry for them to be able to not have, to pay tariffs or whatever in the trade agreement. But aside from those small little things, NAFTA is pretty much what it was when Bill Clinton passed it all those years ago.
I mean, our strategy in Afghanistan is the same as it was.
Yeah.
Like
I'm saying.
The upward trajectory of the economy is the same as it was, but his name's on it.
So,
like his building.
And that's not even my biggest gripe, is that he put his name on it. My biggest gripe is that Trudeau kind of caved in when he didn't have to. I felt that he definitely had control of the conversation. He was either going to, stay out and let Mexico and the U.S. do this alone together. And then the second is that even right now with how everything's passed, nothing guarantees that the parliament in Canada passes it. Nothing guarantees that our Congress signs it into law. Nothing guarantees that Mexico's Congress signs it into law. So it just gives him kind of like a big win in a way, right before the midterm. So it kind of just gives them a really strong talking point, which every person running under that ticket is going to say, like, we're the party of jobs. We're bringing back jobs to America. Trump stayed by his promise.
230,000 jobs.
But did they do that alone? That trajectory's been going up since 2009.
That's besides the point. Like, it was projected at 80.
Hi, Michaela. Thanks for watching.
What's up, Michaela? By the way, Courtney says Canada doesn't need dairy imports. They make enough.
No, that's what I'm saying. They're
allowing more of our dairy to go in. Exactly. It was capped at a certain amount before.
Because they make enough of their own. Yeah. American dairy is not as strictly regulated.
So our farmers couldn't sell as much as they wanted to over there. So he's making it so that our
can we sell them milk for cheaper than
probably not
than they could
I
get
think it's still I think it'll be balanced out. It'll probably be the same price because Canada still has tariffs implemented on us and the dispute resolution still in place. The biggest issue here is that it's supposed to be a free trade zone, and yet it left in place all these tariffs to balance things out. But it didn't do anything to open up the Canadian pharmaceutical market, which is something that could have been the biggest gain and biggest change to NAFTA, where I'd be like, yes, this is great if we could buy Canadian pharmaceuticals so we can stop paying $1,500 for an HIV treatment pill or something.
That would assume that the people making these deals weren't in the pocket.
Bob McKelvey watching. How you doing, Bob?
Hey, Bobby.
Jay said, a big pharma.
Or said he'll check us out.
But Jay, let me ask you a question. Does it surprise you that the man that throws his name on all these buildings that aren't really his is throwing his name on this new NAFTA deal?
No, it doesn't surprise me. And I guess we would have seen it coming. And like you all said, I guess I'm just happy that it wasn't like a train wreck. What I'm upset at right now is Justin Trudeau.
So this is what I wanted to say to you about that.
If it doesn't pass all 3, it doesn't matter. NAFTA pretty much stays in place. And this bill is going into the Mexican Congress on the last day of Piñata's
I'm not mad about what ultimately can or cannot happen. I'm mad that this whole month he can ride that into November 6th.
That's fine, but that's not Justin Trudeau's problem, right?
No, but I don't think Canada won.
The
He didn't
difference
have
between Justin Trudeau and Donald Trump is that Justin Trudeau is an adult, right?
And he was an adult in comparison.
It's not when you're at that stage, you can say, well, am I gonna let this asshole get a win, or am I gonna worry about the people of my country? And you kind of
exactly
just have
what I
to
said
say,
on the right here.
Yeah.
You know, whatever. He's top scum, but I have more important things to worry about, right? So
maybe
you
I'm just
can't really get mad at him for looking out for his people.
but
He's not on a political party here.
No, I get it.
You know what I mean?
I would just say that
his election he has to worry about.
I don't see how, and this is just maybe.
What did he lose? Let's put it that way.
Okay, and that's what I'm trying to figure out. I don't see what he won. I don't know if he lost anything, but I don't see where Canada won in this. But that could just be my ignorance as to what NAFTA really does for Canada. I just don't see how they won anything.
The whole idea.
If anything, they hurt their dairy producers, right?
Well, they knew they had to do this, right? That's the other thing.
But did they have to?
No. They knew they had to open up their dairy markets, right? That was a thing that they knew was coming.
Okay.
Right? So now they're taking the opportunity to do that. Let's get these stupid trade wars out of the way and give you something that we were going to give you anyway. Right? In the same way that North Korea, it didn't get rid of their nukes, but they shook hands and they gave Trump a photo op. Whatever. Let's stop.
They fell in love. That is real love, and how dare you besmirch real love?
I mean, I think.
Haven't you ever seen The Princess Bride?
I think Kim
Donald
Jong-un
Trump is Princess Buttercup.
All I'm saying is, I think Kim Jong-un hit it. Now,
and then quit it.
Yeah. But the thing is, like,
that was good.
Canada, like, they need to get things back to normal. And if it means he gets like a talking point, so what?
But have things not been normal in Canada? I thought everything was peachy in Canada.
No. Yeah, but you don't want it to look at all the things they're putting on China.
Are they?
Yeah. By the way, Joey says breaking news: Senate to get FBI report on Kavanaugh tonight.
Yeah, but didn't we already say that Mitch McConnell was going to block most senators from reviewing it?
I just read 4 hours ago that he was not going to allow, or I don't know about the report, but I thought. Okay, I don't know. I thought
I thought you were going to have a breaking news banner. Where is our breaking news banner?
It's coming.
Sir, Sergio, do you have anything to say about NAFTA?
Not at all.
Also, Courtney says,
like
so why are these Republican senators filing for subsidies for their farms? Yeah.
That would be Senator Chuck Grassley with a 750-acre farm in Iowa, which is now collecting subsidy money because of Trump's tariffs.
No, stop. We need to stop right there. Let's get this clear.
And he's a billionaire.
They're accepting
already.
welfare.
He's a millionaire already.
Don't call it subsidies.
No, it's welfare.
It's welfare.
It's welfare. Just like it's corporate welfare.
When Exxon gets theirs.
Okay. Yeah.
No, yes, Chuck Grassley, who was instrumental in passing the tax cuts and who did nothing to stop any of these tariffs that are affecting the agriculture industry, is now petitioning the food and the agricultural department to pay for losses because of the tariffs that he instigated. I mean, like, how is this not using it? Yes, USDA. There we go. How is this not using your position for your own benefit?
I propose a change of the name of tonight's episode. I want to rename the episode "Chuck Grassley, the Welfare Queen."
Ooh.
He is a bit of a welfare queen. You know, the thing is
that a glow innuendo or no?
No, I haven't seen Glow.
Oh, okay. One of the characters is called Welfare Queen, so I thought you were...
No, Welfare Queen is the term, like...
Let's not spread any stereotypes.
Oh, so now that makes sense. Thank you for tying that in for me.
Yeah, people who take advantage of the system.
Got it.
By the way, so Gary
Everyone
Vales
takes advantage of the system.
says...
Yeah, they do. It's just legal when white people do it.
You can just get the sense... You can just sense the white supremacy menacing off the top two men.
What's up, Saul?
And he said, this is sad to see. And then Courtney says... My bad, welfare queens. You right.
Listen, everybody is a welfare queen to some extent, and almost no one accomplishes every single thing in their life completely on their own. We all, in some way, shape, or form, help each other, whether it's somebody that builds a road and then you drive on it to get to school, and then you get a good education, get a job, and have kids, and they are supported and aren't living on the streets.
It sounds like you're saying we're all in this
together. Yes. But some would have us believe that we are not, and only those who are wealthy are successful and smart and deserve all the benefits of society. That should not be true, but it is, as I mentioned before, with Henry Wallace's campaign at the end of FDR's life. If the party bosses and the people in charge weren't so powerful, then the people that really were excited for people like Henry Wallace or someone would have gotten their nominee, and we wouldn't have been stuck with someone like Truman, who wanted to drop bombs on places and push people around and swing his dick around, just like Donald Trump is doing. And he left office with the worst approval rating until George Bush left office. And I have a feeling that if we can get rid of Trump in 2020, that he will also leave with a pretty low approval rating.
I had a good conversation the other day with someone about the greatest lie that the GOP has told, and it's actually stuck and it's become a talking point. And if you ask anyone, a simple question: which is the party of small government? Most people are going to say the Republican Party, but there really is no party of small government. Well, neither party believes in small government. It's just the way that the government works for them when they're in power. They're okay with government extending their reach into how women can reproduce or what women can do with their bodies. They're okay dictating which religion is okay and which religion is not okay. They could dictate who's allowed to vote and who's not allowed to vote. So it's okay when the government overreaches when it's to their benefit.
No, but I mean, that's old news. You only care about the deficit when the other party's in office.
And when they're in power, they have a $1.3 trillion.
You only care about morality when your party leader is not Donald Trump. Right? Where's the Tea Party now? Where now all the values voters are saying we didn't elect Jesus, but we'll just treat him that way.
Well, this is actually a good segue into the next topic, which is tax fraud. That was great. Tax fraud. New York Times had a 14,000 word article which Sarah Sanders says was incredibly boring, and she's not going to answer questions about it because the president's accused of tax fraud. Like, tell me something I don't know. So Sarah Sanders deflected a lot on that, but the article detailed the Trump family and the way in which Fred Trump, around the end of his life, he died in 1999, created a bunch of shell companies to buy products at a markup and keep that money for his children so that they would get it without having to pay taxes on it. And so Donald Trump's claim to have gotten a $1 million loan that he paid back with interest is inherently and patently false. It is provably false. And it was more in the hundreds of millions of dollars that he used, and through other things like scamming people out of money, not paying contracts, firing people, and doing all other manner of corrupt business dealings, made himself into this billionaire empire that he has today, which is mostly about branding. He's said that. He says it in his books. The whole Trump empire is about putting his name on stuff. It doesn't mean you having a good product. Trump steaks, Trump vodka, Trump cars, Trump hotels, Trump casinos, Trump University. Everything with his name on it either
Trump presidency
fails or does miserably or swindles somebody out of their money. But the name was still valuable enough to put on things. And after he got elected, some people took the names off of places. But for the most part, the name still means stuff. I mean, I catch myself every now and then talking and saying, oh, this trumped that. Or, oh, he got an ace up his sleeve or his trump card or whatever like that. I don't know when I started saying these kinds of things. I hate that I do because it makes his name synonymous with winning, which I don't believe he is a winner. I think he's a successful loser.
Look, spoiler alert. Trump's a liar.
Well,
why does this matter?
Shocking. The point of this article...
Is this going to change anyone's opinion unless they have some evidence that is not past the statute of limitations?
That's correct. Well, I was just about to say that the statute of limitations for the IRS to look into it is 6 years to file criminal charges. There is no statute. Oh, we got a spoiler alert thing?
Yeah.
That's fun. I like that. But no breaking news.
No, not yet.
Statute of limitations is 6 years to file federal criminal charges for tax fraud, but there's no statute for civil complaints. However, the current head of the IRS, Mr. Charles Rettig, appointed last month by Donald Trump to head the IRS. It's very unlikely he will open or re-audit the president's finances or try to get his tax returns because they're still saying that he's under audit and they will not release his tax returns as of today. They said that.
Well, I do have a question about that.
The state can still do it.
Didn't Sarah Sanders say that, he got an extension on his taxes, which is October 15th, 2018. That's when the extension deadline is, and that he would release his taxes then? I know the answer to this rhetorical question, but do you three think he's actually going to release his taxes on October 15th?
Absolutely not. He has no incentive. He has no reason to.
I think that calls for another spoiler alert.
Yeah.
No, the fuck he's not.
Yeah, no. Listen, with regards to this, because this is the reason why I wanted to add the Gamble versus United States case coming up with the Supreme Court to this to our docket, because this case
saw what you did
involves
there.
whether or not because the federal government's unlikely to pursue this, but the state of New York, which, I mean, New York is coming to the.
But they're already coming after him for like a few things, aren't they? Like
And
things to
they're
do with his
talking
building,
to
things to do with
the
his
guy
family.
who ran
and-
his books. What's that guy's name?
I forget now.
Whatever his name, but
Yeah.
the guy who ran the Trump organization books,
but
like
even
he's
this-
cooperating.
Yeah,
with
but
the
even
news
this guy,
Michael Cohen's cooperating.
Yeah, okay, but that was in
but
the news
Michael
for like
Cohen didn't have
forever, and now
access
it's
to all the
gone.
money. Like
Well,
that, this guy.
There
knows
are
where-
three
I'm sure he's
exceptions.
had access to something.
There are
to
three
do with that money.
exceptions for them to go state criminal charges, and one of them would be filing a false return, deliberately not filing return, or filing return with with lies that help you evade paying a tax. So the state could file criminal charges against him. It's still very common knowledge in law that you can't.
Yeah, but can't you-
criminalize
but
the
you can't
president while
indict a
he's in
sitting
office.
yeah,
exactly.
so-
But they still could go after him. He still could face civil penalties, pay back taxes, interest, fines, and we're talking about 20 years worth of money since his dad died in '99 and his mom died in 2000. I'm not saying he did it, but he was around.
But he did it.
Yeah, he didn't.
Spoiler alert. No.
No. Did anybody get that presidential text alert today?
Yeah, everyone got
Who
it.
the who?
Everything.
Sorry.
I saw
No,
your
so-
Give
phone.
that man my
I
number.
saw your phone.
No, it's
No, you know what? It was gonna work even if your phone didn't have
Yeah.
a SIM card, even if it was turned off.
Yeah.
It was gonna get turned back on. And it was gonna do. Everyone in
I
my office at the same time was like,
almost
beep beep beep.
smashed my phone when I saw that.
Oh,
Yeah.
dude, everyone in my office was like,
He's
okay, we text him back
prohibited
and
from
say,
by
fuck
federal
you.
law from saying anything over the message. It's only for natural or national disasters.
And apparently has like a very secure process in like two people have to approve the message. There's like one laptop
so
that can send
Yeah,
you.
this
that
is
worked
more
out real
secure.
well in Hawaii,
Yeah, there's
right?
real.
Well,
It's
yeah,
more secure
okay,
than the
but I
nuclear
was like,
button.
yeah, someone freaking lost their job. I'm pretty sure with what happened in Hawaii, but yeah, it's not supposed to be for him to be able to use whenever he wants at whatever But I can see why people are afraid or why they would think that in the hands of this guy it's a bad idea. But
Well, I
don't
didn't,
know.
I
I
didn't
think
mean to
people
go
are
off
making too
topic
big
with
of a
that.
deal
I
of it.
just
No, it's fine.
I saw something and I
Yeah,
was
no.
like, I remember. I got the text. It didn't say anything. It just said
no,
president's alert. It's, like, it's not his.
It's like a testing, and it's not the worst thing in the world.
No.
Everyone has a cell phone now, so it is what it is.
But the point was that this is a guy who we have 14,000 words in just one New York Times article, and it seems like everybody distrusts the media more and more, and yet they're the ones that are doing the investigations. They're the ones that are finding out the truth in things. It's not the FBI, it's not the CIA, it's not independent counsels and all this stuff. It's the media. These are the guys who are going in there spending.
They should have
You
done
think
the
about
job
how
better
much
back in
time-
2016.
Well,
It
yeah,
was like 2 years
but
too
I
late.
remember listening to things like NPR and stuff, and they're like, "We're not even going to bother talking about Donald Trump because he's nobody. Like, we can't gratify him with a
Well,
stage."
here's the thing.
But
Maybe
someone did,
if-
and then he got where he
Maybe if
is.
CNN and MSNBC did that,
Yep.
maybe he wouldn't be president today. I believe
one can only hope.
that even though the news tries to do their best, they are in a symbiotic relationship with Trump.
Yeah, they survive off of his bullshit every day. He
Right,
gives them their
and-
headlines.
and it gives them their ratings. Their ratings are higher than they've ever been because people are tuning in to see what crazy thing he does next. And he knows how to change the subject and control whatever they're talking about. A story isn't playing too well for him today, he'll say some vaguely or overtly racist shit to change the topic tomorrow. That doesn't work, he'll threaten to start another war. That doesn't work, it'll be a trade war.
Even that day he said he was going to meet with Rosenstein on that Thursday and then cancel the meeting. That was the day I'm almost positive, I could be wrong, that the House Republicans passed another version of the tax bill that made the cuts for corporations permanent.
Also, in that same tax bill, they classified a fetus as a human life in a tax bill.
In a tax bill under one line of the law. And it was for, just, it wasn't even talking about abortion or anything like that. It was just talking about, like, this is just what it is for the purpose of, like, reimbursement for medical care and stuff like that. But they inserted a line that basically said that, the fetus is a human and it's a citizen or a person or whatever. So
I love
someone
how
said the
fetuses
other day
have
you
more
could
rights than most humans have
you could
in
pass
this country. but okay.
tax laws on scraps of notebook paper and napkins and your child's coloring book, but we can't get 5 minutes to hear what the FBI is saying about a Supreme Court judge or what is actually in a tax bill, 480 pages.
Was that another segue?
that we needed, we need some more than 12 hours to read over a tax bill. Yes, that is a lovely segue. Which
Okay,
is
you are going to have to start riding around on one of those things.
I would love to. I would love to write a segue.
Okay, wait. Before we go forward, Courtney says, lives, news, and newspapers make money hand over fist because of Trump. Yes, I think he agrees with us. And Rick asked about Sergio.
Who is the guy in the bottom right corner?
Yeah. Hey, Sergio.
That would be Sergio, our friend and avid listener, and he wanted to be on the show today. And
hey, Ricky.
We like him. And you know him.
Rick, you can be on the show too.
You can be on the show too, Rick. He's actually offered us a space for a podcast thing. We could talk later. He's a cool kid. He knows a lot of people.
Rick, you too can fight forest fires.
Yes. So, what did I segue into before?
Kavanaugh.
Kavanaugh. Mr. Brett Kavanaugh.
Got drunk.
Yeah. I love all the memes and pictures and stuff going around. Like,
I love Matt
when was the
Damon.
last time?
Did you see that Matt Damon skit? Dude,
I'm waiting to go watch it at home. I'm waiting to watch it at home.
I thought about playing it instead of the intro, but it would have been like 15 minutes.
And it also violates
copyright law. And it would have been a well spent 15 minutes. I'm pretty sure everyone would.
I don't think we could afford the rebroadcasting rights, but it's not far off because I don't remember the last time I ever went to a job interview.
I'm gonna take it from 11 to 15 right away. It was so good. We have to show it. We have to show at least a clip.
I literally sat in my car and had my car off for 10, 15 minutes before I even got out because I was listening to the entirety of the hearings. And the disdain he showed for Democrats, I don't care that he's a Republican or whatever, but the disdain, the absolute animosity and clear bias, the lack of temperament, lying under oath as a federal judge.
That alone, he perjured himself.
He perjured himself, and it didn't matter if it was about drinking or blowjobs. He perjured himself. He perjured himself. He lied. The Devil's Three-Way is a sexual position. Anybody who's anybody knows and can find that out. It is nothing like quarters.
Pick up your
skis are brewskis. And your stupid calendar is not helpful, especially when someone finds a picture of you and a certain accuser in a room together when you say you've never met this person and you didn't even know about the allegations.
How did this guy pull up a calendar from 1980?
Because listen, I'm not poo-pooing on him for keeping his calendar. That's not what's in question.
Why did he start crying over the calendar?
He cried over beers. Because he loves his beer, and he loves his friends, and he loves all the women that he's been supportive of his whole life. And I do not doubt that he has been a gentleman with these women. He's been very professional because from a certain point on, he was under a fine-tooth comb and a microscope. He went through 6 background checks. He knows that he can't get away with anything at the moment. And so what Orrin Hatch said about if you're a rapist at 20, you'll keep doing it. He would have kept doing it if he was that. That's not true. It's not true at all. He very easily could have just stopped and realized he got away with it and called it quits. A lot of us have stopped something while we were ahead and didn't suffer for it.
What have you stopped, Joe?
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes you just stop, whatever you're doing.
I stopped myself from punching Joe in the face.
That's why he sits all the way across the room. But the point is, though, that you don't just say that those are things you ignore. You don't. This is a Supreme Court justice, a seat that is a lifetime tenure with a $250,000 paycheck with benefits out the wazoo that gets to decide what every law in America means and could overturn established law that has been around for 40 or 50 years because it's in the interest of the conservatives that put his name on that list.
Okay.
There are plenty of other qualified judges that could sit in that seat. It does not have to be Brett Kavanaugh. Move on to the next guy. That's all.
But what do you think happens to the next guy?
Okay.
Next, Neil Gorsuch didn't rape anybody, and nobody said anything about him doing it. I hated Neil Gorsuch because he was sitting in a stolen seat. If Merrick Garland gets nominated tomorrow, and then somebody says he raped him, just like Cristiano Ronaldo, all of a sudden is being accused of rape because he settled a case from Las Vegas.
He adamantly denied that.
Yeah, but he settled a lawsuit that basically says that he did these things, and that was in the NDA. I don't know why she's talking about. I don't know how she got out of it. As far as I'm concerned, that's prostitution. But if you got, she got paid $350,000 to stay quiet about it, and now she's not quiet. So
Ronnie says Kanye West 2020. I'm not giving any life energy to Kanye.
Oh God!
But
we have a Kanye expert here.
I have thoughts on.
I think
Kavanaugh,
you know what? Because we're talking about Kavanaugh, I think it's perfectly reasonable to mention Mr. West, and I would just like to start this off by reading.
Wait. Hold on. I need to talk about Kavanaugh.
You want to say something? I thought we were going to give Sergio a second to talk about
Kanye. Yeah, we'll get there. I have some shit to say about Kavanaugh too.
Okay.
All right. I thought you wanted
to. Don't worry. We're coming.
Sergio, you'll get your
chance.
We're
coming to that.
You'll get your chance.
Now, here's the thing about Kavanaugh. I went on a big tirade last week and the week before about going back 35 years and saying that this is the new
Mr.
bar.
Wotecki, thank you for watching.
When, you know, if we're judging people by what they did in high school, and I think this is a dangerous road, and I think that they only pushed out Al Franken so that they could get to this, so that they could have some kind of moral foot to stand on, and this is clearly politics, and the pendulum will swing the other way. That's what I said last week.
That's what Lindsey Graham said.
See, but we are here because of what the GOP did, and that's the inherent hypocrisy, and like everyone whose heads is exploding right now that he's doing what he's doing.
Look,
they forgot that they did that to Merrick Garland. And the whole audacity from Sarah Sanders coming out saying, well, every nominee deserves to be heard. Like, do you fucking forget what just happened a year and a half ago? Like,
but,
you know,
but the work. I don't even
the way
blame.
they're treating Kavanaugh. If a woman would have acted like he did in that hearing, what were the words they're going to be thrown around? Hysterical,
squee.
Yeah, not even or him crying,
petulant,
you know, like or him yelling.
No, but
they would have just said that she can't control her emotions, that she's hysterical, that they can't no composure under pressure.
Sotomayor and Kagan didn't cry on the stand. Hillary Clinton didn't cry after 11 hours of Benghazi hearings.
Someone said because that's how much of an expert liar she is was the defense I heard on that one, but whatever.
Okay, now and again, those people that call her a liar support Trump. So. Look, it's situational ethics at its best, but this is my point. I still don't think that we should go back to people's high school careers
to judge them for the rest of their lives.
Right, because people do change, right? And if you didn't find anything as an adult, see the difference with Clarence Thomas, he was doing that when he was in a public
with Anita
official,
Hill, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
He was in a position of power, right?
All right, but look,
and wait, hold on.
You guys are making the same mistakes that a lot of people are making, and you're thinking it's just about Christine Ford in high school.
No, I know
there are
that.
other accusers, and all the way up through college, when you're a full-fledged adult with plenty of connections, despite the fact he says he had zero connections that got him there. He was a legacy member of Yale.
I get it. What I'm saying is I'm acknowledging what I said last week, and then I watched the hearing. Mm-hmm. And here's the thing. If you're going to be a conservative judge, that's fine. A Republican one, we get conservative candidates, right? Can't do anything. Might not like it, but can't do anything about it. Now, the problem is he went up there and said that this is revenge from the Clintons and the Democrats couldn't stand Trump's win in 2016, and he will remember this. You're like
he's an attack dog now.
You're an operative, right? And what he was doing was performing for the Republicans as well as, or more importantly, Trump, because he was showing them, look, I am a partisan, which is different from viewing the law from a conservative point of view. Right? He's saying, I am a partisan and I am going to take this out on the Democrats. So you better confirm me because I want to get revenge on the libtards.
He wants to get revenge on the Clintons because of Kenneth Starr.
And that is disqualifying, right? Because as a Supreme Court justice, you have a lifetime appointment. You're not supposed to bend to what some president tells you, or
have a vendetta.
You are the last bastion of what the interpretation of the law is, right? So you shouldn't give a shit about what the Republicans are saying or what. And if you look at the way he presented himself during his first interviews versus him coming out there with the guns out, like he doesn't have the temperament. He portrayed himself to be a nonpartisan, which was also a lie. And like, I'm gonna remember this? What does that have to do with any case you're gonna get? What is it? Why would you remember any of this?
Look, it's our fault ultimately that this is where we are as a country. This is where we are.
If you voted for Jill Stein, fuck you.
Yeah, man.
And if you're a Bernie bro who stayed home, fuck you too.
But even before this election, like this has been going on for a better part of a decade now.
You didn't come out and vote for Obama in 2010? Fuck you again.
Just because.
It's our fault.
Not just because.
It's social media's fault. It's the rapid 24/7 news cycle that needs to fill in the gaps at every moment and update us with every single breaking news and breaking
and
that.
we
And
no longer require people to know what they're talking about.
Or we don't require people to present facts before making accusations, which is the defense that the right's using in regard to Kavanaugh.
Here's the thing.
I'm not defending the guy, by the way, just FYI out there. I'm not defending that piece of shit at all. I'm just saying that this, like you said, the pendulum is going to swing back, and we are going to reap what we sow, the same way the Republicans are reaping what they sowed with Merrick Garland, and this is just going to keep going, and it's going to get worse, and I really don't see how or where that ends. Like, how do we fix this? Like, how do we come back from the precipice of where we are now?
We
to
need
bring shit back to reality, to normal.
The I don't remember his name, but sort of the thing that marked the end of McCarthyism, where one of the senators was like, "Have you no decency, sir?" And that was kind of the pendulum swinging back in the way of.
But what's the equivalent of that in today's world, where decency is? Everyone has a different idea of what decency might be. Everything's gone out the window. We have someone literally sitting in the White House who's on record, on audio, can't deny it, and did deny it afterwards, that said, grab them by the pussy. A guy who has two porn stars, or two women, I don't know if the other one's a porn star, breaking their NDA agreements to come out and say that they were sexually harassed or they had sex with them for money,
what is that
whatever, or now tax fraud, and illegal businesses and not treating people. So what? Where's the line of
ever
decency?
since you took away, people took the Bill Cosby to court and found him guilty. I mean, I can't think in my head. Just you just asked me, can you just name one wholesome, good person that anybody could rally behind? I can't think of one. Everybody is partisan now. Everybody is red versus blue, and until we get that out of our system, which, as history would show us, and I'm not advocating this, but as history has shown us thousands of times and time again, the only way to get that out of the system is to literally fight it out. It's to revolt against what is making you in that situation. It's what happened to us in 1776. It's what happened in every country around the world since the end of World War II that's thrown off colonialism. And every single time it's been bloody, violent, people have gotten hurt. And in almost every single time, authoritarian governments have risen in to fill the void.
I don't disagree with you, but do you guys think that can happen here?
So here's
Absolutely.
the thing.
It can happen anywhere. By the way,
Courtney says the P-tape will rectify all of this.
Where is it? Can Pruitt probably just...
By the way, I finished the Bob Woodward book.
Did you? How was it?
We'll talk about it at the end. In closing arguments.
Okay.
Now, I think that, and this is scary to say, but it feels like the only thing that would get the country back on track is like a big tragedy, right?
But that might not work in our benefit.
So what we need is a tragedy or a goal, because where we're going is the laws don't matter if it's for my side. And then law is not we're not a land of laws anymore. The law is just a tool we use to win or to get rid of our enemies.
Can I ask you to elaborate on that point? What do you mean by tragedy? Because if you're referring to, let's say, a terrorist attack or war, historically speaking, people rally around whoever is in power in that moment. People don't jump ship in the middle of a war, which is why FDR got elected 4 times.
Yeah.
Which is why George Bush's poll numbers skyrocketed for during 9/11 and a year and a half after. So let's say a tragedy like that were to happen, I would then say that people would rally around Trump, that we would kind of come together and say, well, fuck it, he might be an asshole, but he's our asshole. Let's deal with this. What kind of tragedy do you think would happen for us to change everything?
Trump is not the problem. Trump is going to be gone if he doesn't install himself as a monarch. But Trump will be gone. There's still all those supporters that are empowering him, and there are elected officials that are enabling him.
But
and there are apologists on TV. No, I don't.
But I mean, people like Roy Moore couldn't get on. People like Arapaio couldn't.
How close was that?
Granted, it was close, but I mean, I really think that
there are people right now.
I just think people were ignorant as to how far Trump would take it.
Okay.
People saw the celebrity Trump. Now we're seeing the real Trump. The real question is, if he wins in 2020, then I completely think you're right, 100%.
Okay.
But
here's the thing: how many times have I been right?
I don't know, twice.
More than I'd like to say you are.
Okay. Here's the thing: there are people out there that are saying, "I'd rather be a Russian than a Democrat."
That shit is crazy to me.
I do believe that was the governor
do they
of
understand
Alabama.
what they're saying?
No, but this is what I'm saying.
These
nothing matters.
and
Nothing matters anymore. It's not even about patriotism. You just use that as a tool.
It's not
to
about
get
patriotism.
to really get to the point you
know,
want.
you know,
and
it's not,
so
yeah. Sorry.
the thing is this, and this is why I brought up that Star Wars thing to you, right? This new report came out. Hollywood Reporter reported it. Washington Post wrote about it, and basically there was a study done showing that with the new Last Jedi movie and all the vitriol against it, and how people were bullying Kelly Marie Tran, the Asian actress, till she had to get off of Twitter, and there were the people that were mad about a black stormtrooper before, and apparently Russian trolls were pretending to be angry Star Wars fans that would rile people up, because you only need one person, one loud person in the group, because we are essentially sheep. We're lemmings. So someone tells us to be mad, and maybe I'm mad about the job that I hate. Maybe I'm mad because my girlfriend's not a nice person. Maybe I'm mad because I just didn't fulfill my life dreams. But this person, or this movie that I hate, or this person kneeling at a football game, or this president is telling me, here, focus your anger that way.
Yeah, karma.
Right? And so a lot of the times when you just give people something to be mad at, they'll start fighting. So we found out that they would pose as film fans. They would pose as Black Lives Matter organizers. And then they would pose as white supremacists just to get the country fighting. Right? And it is a long play, and it's probably not just Russia.
It's so weird to think that none of this could happen if it weren't for instant messaging. Twitter, it started with AIM, but you wouldn't be able to control so many people without rapid communication.
Right, but
it's so weird. If you got rid of Twitter and Facebook today,
we were
almost all these problems would go
And we
away.
were talking about this before, right? The responsibility of someone that maybe might not have chosen that to have that responsibility on their shoulders. Mark Zuckerberg, is he responsible for everything that's going on now, even though he didn't foresee this happening?
Yeah.
You get me?
Quick question: if all those problems go away, do you consider those people that are cut off from social media to be ignorant? Do they no longer have a say on all the stuff that happens?
I don't think that. I think
there's other ways
everything
to get
was fine.
What if you don't?
Before the year 2000. I mean, we've only had this for a couple years. Of course, we're not into it long enough like we were with the book, written word, in newspapers and stuff.
Which did damage in its day. People wrote pamphlets and started revolutions.
Exactly.
So
Martin Luther.
It's always been the way. Yeah, it's always been the way that we've communicated.
I just
and
think
the motive. It's just like a hyper communication now.
Yeah.
Like I think it would have happened. Maybe we've gotten there. Maybe
when you have this many people in the world,
Well,
true. I read a crazy statistic the other day. There were only 150 million people in the day of Julius Caesar. There's 350 million people now just in the U.S. Like, imagine how crazy small the world was relative to today.
And that's why it was so important to
And now the difference
stay
of
alive.
opinions and like how homogenous or not we are, and the different races, and that competing for resources, for airtime, for anything. I think that might have something to do with it too.
Here's the other thing. I went on my closing arguments on I think the last show we did, maybe the show before that. What I talked about is why this happens. Is a lot of the times, aside from trolls, we're being ruled by these algorithms, right? So if I'm Google, if I'm Facebook, if I'm Twitter, your feed doesn't come to you organically, right? What you are fed is things that you are likely to engage with, right? So the algorithm dictates that if you click on social activist things, you will get more of that, and it's the concept of bubbling, right? So it will bubble information. So if you think that it's unpatriotic to kneel at a football game, they will feed these things to you. And people click on things that make them angry too. And so we begin to think that the world is crumbling around us, whereas it's just the loudest voices in the room. And Russian troll farms. But most people who end up feeling this anxiety are just gaslit by YouTube, by Twitter, by Facebook, where we are right now. And I don't really see a way to fix that. And I don't know what the responsibility is on these companies.
They should, I don't hold them accountable to the point or to the level that I think this was done intentionally or in a malevolent way. Do I think that maybe retroactively the federal government might have to step in at a point? How does that, really breach our right to free speech? And, does a company have a right to free speech? It opens up a whole can of worms. But I think there has to be some responsibility, because I think it is because of those mechanisms and those lines of communication that we are where we are. And since we're on the topic, I do want to just ask a pretty broad question to Sergio, because he's someone that's very not into social media. You're not plugged in like the rest of almost everyone is. So how do you feel from your perspective with everything that's going on? Like, you're kind of so much sheltered from it. Like, with everything with Trump, with everything going on, like, do you feel it? Or do you feel like you're somewhat separated from it? Or do you feel like you have a stake at the table with what's going on, which ultimately does affect you? I mean, your finances, buying a home, taking out loans, all these little things trickle down and do affect you, down the road. Do you care? How do you feel about it?
I don't really. I mean, I care, but I don't. To be honest, I feel unaffected. I feel like well, to really zoom in on what you said, I feel like it's made to be a big deal when in reality it's not. I feel like I have very little to do with the outcome. Powerless in a way, but also.
But so you don't feel like you have to participate?
No, I don't. I used to feel that way. I used to feel like I had to participate and I had to go out and vote. And
don't you think that might be one of the problems, though? That
no,
I still do.
You? I just feel like, yeah, but, I feel like there's only so much I can do.
It's an interesting way to look at it.
To be honest. And I also want to say, not to cut you off.
No, you won't cut me off.
I don't disagree with social media. It's more or less like, for example, I'll check out YouTube or let's say Reddit or something like that, and I'm tuned in that manner. But for the most part, social media is going to provide whatever you want it to. Just like you said, it's an echo chamber in a certain way. But I really don't think
call it a black mirror.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because, obviously someone like myself very much feels the opposite of that way, just because that's who I've just always been. I've always been a debater. I've always been someone just, why is this that way? And it should be this way. And I walk around with the Constitution everywhere I go. But there are hundreds of millions of people in this country alone that don't feel affected day to day by everything that's happening, and every week we come on and we talk about. I'd
like to feel that way.
It would be nice to feel. Yeah. It's like comfortably numb, almost like Pink Floyd says.
I think
it's just interesting that he's not alone in this, and in fact he may in fact be in the majority of Americans that just feel like it doesn't really matter what you do because everything is going to just go the way it's going to go,
or it's going to happen to you, and the outcome of that isn't really in your hands.
Here's the other part of it. And by the way, before I say, because I have thoughts on that, but I just want to catch up with the comments. So we have, Helena Rodriguez. I can't pronounce
S-O-L.
Oh, what's up, bro? He's watching. Hey.
Yeah.
So this time around,
we got more viewers
really,
now,
really dangerous. Talking about the revolution that's coming. Courtney says we've had school shootings.
And church shootings, nothing, no national tragedy there.
And didn't something happen today where 5 cops got shot in South Carolina or something?
I mean, I guess.
There was an active shooting already.
And that's what Courtney also said.
Now we're desensitized to it. Yeah, now she's like, oh, another shooting. Okay.
And then Gina says she doesn't think that the rally around Trump would be as significant as he would hope. Now, here's the thing. I think if you want to feel like your vote matters, and a change that you can make, I think the big lie, or not the big lie, but the tragedy is that politics and news has become entertainment to the point that we have a reality show president, right? But if you want to be engaged in politics, you should be engaged on the local level. Yes. And I'm not just talking about your governor, but who's your mayor? Who is your literal alderman? Because they will have way more effect on your life than the president, right? And so I think we look at the national politics, the 24-hour politics, and we think, well, that's not really affecting me, because kind of, for the most part, it's not, right? There are mechanisms in place, and the train continues to move along. The news makes us feel like we're constantly under attack. The news makes us feel like we need to get out there and fight, and that's how it's designed, because angry people, again, engage with things.
That is why we
Right.
bring you the news calmly and securely.
Sometimes.
We never raise our voices.
So, but
I had to laugh at that.
but the point is, you will get a sense of empowerment by participating in your at the very local level of your election.
I've said it.
I'd like to
before.
ask a question of Sergio. What would change that for you? What would make you feel like you had an effect or that you should be participating? I mean, I know you live in probably one of the most densely populated parts of the country, outside of New York City.
We all do.
What would make you feel like you were actually having an impact or that your impact was necessary or helpful?
Shutting off the extra noise and being able to tune in on what I'm actually good at and being great at that. Therefore, I'm a king in my own respect.
Mm-hmm.
If I feel like I'm being fed all these different things which conveniently happen every day, 15 times a day, I'm going to be constantly giving myself some type of feeling like I'm doing something about it, when in reality, not only am I just talking about it and getting nowhere, I'm letting it run throughout my mind all day, and then I'm kind of ignoring myself or hearing myself speak and letting all this extra stuff that's not supposed to be in my head kind of like control what I think about, instead of being able to focus on me and what's in
So
front
you
of
don't
me.
think the government has any role in your life, or you don't
Absolutely
have any role
does.
in the
I
government?
just honestly don't believe I can do anything about it unless I'm going to start on a local scale. And you actually are someone that pointed that out to me.
I mean, look,
During
even if you
school,
don't think it
you
means
know?
anything, because we have a handful of viewers, but even being on the show and talking and being around other people a little outside your element and seeing that it doesn't have to just be you sending out a tweet or you reposting something on Facebook. It's just getting out and talking, putting yourself on a camera, on the record, where you can't walk something back and say you didn't do. Like, if you believe something, you believe it and put it out there. If you don't believe that you need to be a part of the government because there's 9 million other people in the state that can do it for you, that's fine. But just, like
Not do it
we've said
for
before,
me. Life is going to go on with or without me.
Agreed. But
is it important what kind of world we're in and what kind of world we leave behind, or I don't know.
I see exactly where he's
true.
No, coming from.
and
I
I
feel
agree.
very empathetic towards the situation. And
I just also think that he's more indicative and representative of maybe, like you said, the majority in this country versus what I think is a problem is that the majority doesn't really hold the megaphone right now. It's the loud minority on each side of the issues.
And by the way, most people kind of like, they may talk about these things, but most people aren't burning Nikes.
No.
Right?
No.
Most people kind of like, I was just at a farm over the weekend and we were listening to country music and picking apples, and it was great. And it was people from all, what you name it.
So I have a funny
and it
anecdote.
was the whitest of white neighborhoods, but there were people from all colors around there. Everybody's getting along, laughing, dancing to different music. I think that is most of the country.
Yeah.
But the WWF news
Wants
makes you
you
think something
angry.
different because that keeps you engaged.
So I got upset at
what does
myself
the
this
World
weekend.
Wildlife Fund have to do with it?
You're an idiot. So I have a funny anecdote, just like yours. So I was apple picking this week, and I was at a farm up in upstate New York, and I caught myself doing something. There was this guy sitting down there with his
Did
kid.
you get arrested for it?
And he has a shirt that in the back it said, "I stand for the American flag. I'm a patriot." And decked out in the. And I just caught myself looking at him and being like, I want to fucking deck this guy.
but
Like
again,
I want to like
that
just.
is the anger.
No, I get it, and that's what I'm saying. You're right, but funny enough, what happened later on. So after we are like all, they were watching some kids show. My kids were there, so we all go our separate ways. We're picking in the middle of an orchard. This same guy proposes to his girl. He's there with his whole family. They come up to ask me to take a picture for them, and in taking the picture, we all start talking and getting along. And I had my Green Bay shirt on. He ended up being a Minnesota Vikings fan, and his wife is a Jets fan. And we all now start talking about football and family. And we all like connected at that level, and we all were really friendly. But I judged him on that shirt.
But
You know what
that's
I mean?
the thing.
But he would have judged me if I did take a knee, right? Let's say the national anthem would have played, probably would have never asked me to take his picture.
Politics has become just like watching sports. Like, this is my team.
Yeah,
right?
you're right.
And
I wasn't happy about the way I felt.
And
I kind of caught myself. I was
the
like,
difference with football is, for the most part, unless it's like a Super Bowl or something,
no one's gonna get fought over.
like people, nobody is
Yeah.
fighting over it. But these are decisions that are affecting people's lives. But it's become like a game. And Courtney says he doesn't know,
Exactly.
but
right.
not participating is kind of part of the problem. He's like, in your heart, you know what your beliefs are. How hard is it to find a like-minded politician and vote for him or her? But here's the thing, Courtney. Sometimes those politicians aren't there. But to that, I would say
You're right.
that's how you think about it as a business. If you find a need that's not being met, you open that business and you'll make a ton of money. So if there's nobody out there running that believes what you believe, run yourself. Because there's probably a lot of people out there that are thinking the same way as you. So if all of these politicians are clowns to you, that's how Ocasio-Cortez got elected, or in the primaries at least.
She knocked on doors.
You know what I mean? Because again, when they're not talking to you, that is a need that is not being served.
So what do we say, Sergio 2020?
I think so.
You get my vote, Serge.
You're gonna have to run against Kanye.
Okay. Well, before we run the show into a very deep hole, I'd like to start off by reading from the book of the Constitution.
And this is not the deep hole.
This is Amendment 13 to the Constitution.
Pay attention.
Section 1, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Section 2, Congress shall have the power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation, which most amendments after 10 said. Kanye West, in
Do we have to do this?
a moment of ignorance, I'm sure, said he thought that the 13th Amendment should be abolished, corrected it, and walked back and said that he meant that he was talking about how slavery exists in prison system as it is.
His friend wrote the excuse that he read, or the reasoning, or the response, and the way he walked it back was saying that he doesn't.
We're only giving this like 2 minutes, Steve.
Yeah, he
Sorry.
doesn't think the amendment should be abolished. It should be amended, because in his explanation, and here's where I kind of started agreeing with him a little bit. It's just the way he presented the argument that was wrong, is that he feels that slavery is still alive and present more in the Black and Hispanic communities, because laws make it so that the incarceration rate is higher for those, for our people, for Blacks and Hispanics. And there's a lot of privatized, prisons in the United States where it's basically ran as a company. And those employees are being paid 8 cents to be doing labor, which in essence is slavery. And that amendment does, you clearly just read, it said that except as a punishment by law, blah, 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 blah. But when we have private businesses where people are actually making money out of it, I could see how maybe slavery is still kind of present. It's just the way he comes across.
Was not slavery an economic system?
It
So
was an
how is
economic
this not an
system.
economic system? Because if you think about it, slaveholders still had to pay for food and upkeep, even if it was minimal for their slaves. They were property just like ox and dogs, except that oxes and dogs were more valuable to them.
The term you're referring to is subsistence.
So
This-
if it costs them a certain amount of money to maintain a slave, 1800s, whatever, the same goes true for a privatized for-profit prison. If you are producing a product that you're selling in the open market, regulated by laws of commerce, and you have employees who are serving prison time, you are now creating an incentive to re-imprison those people, or to imprison them longer, or to go out and find new prisoners to fill in the blocks because other people aren't committing offenses, and then you start making things illegal that were not. This, to me, it's
You also build more prisons instead of schools.
Uh,
But this is
and
not
it's disproportionate.
unsimilar to the moment when the government started subsidizing school loans, hence guaranteeing people having to pay back student loans, which then made incentivized colleges to raise,
skyrocket their prices.
right.
Yeah.
So now the debt on student loans is a big business model.
And that's another form of slavery. It's economic slavery when you can't even buy a house or
Right.
have
So
financial freedom.
Here's the thing. Yes, we do need to look at privately owned prisons, but that's not what he said. And everything you said is underscored by the fact that you were saying it wearing a MAGA hat, right? Why do I say that? Because under this administration, they are rolling back the things that Eric Holder and Obama did to not imprison nonviolent drug offenders. But somehow you think because you added a message sent with love that this is supposed to be okay, like you're the first fucking person that thought of this. But what really happened is he has a goddamn album coming out, and this is just advertisement again. So people are being imprisoned, people are dying, children are getting taken away from kids, but you have an album coming out, and you're saying shit to people like don't lead with your head, lead with your heart, which is another way of saying I don't fucking read. And he cannot even articulate this himself, so he has to get a paragraph written by somebody who probably only read another paragraph from him. So Kanye,
remember that time I
this
said we don't
makes
raise
me
our voices?
think when you said George Bush doesn't care about black people, that's because you also had a fucking album coming out. So fuck you and your old album.
Yeah, I remember going to Bonnaroo and he refused to put on a show while anybody else was performing. So everybody was waiting and waiting and waiting, and we all ended up walking out because he wouldn't go on. And the next morning, everywhere was graffitied with the words "fuck Kanye." And yet and that was 10 years ago, and he still has a fan base and people still buying his albums.
Okay, so
he still gets to meet with Donald Trump and have people pardoned because his wife is a good ambassador. We'll call her.
Say nothing about.
All right. Well, listen, I wanted to give Sergio
enough
a minute or
she's not
two to say
involved.
something about that topic because that wasn't even in our docket today.
I don't have much to say. I just feel like people are overthinking it.
But how? Elaborate. Like, this is your chance.
Take a
like,
minute.
Yeah.
Take a minute.
There's no way to elaborate. It's just too much thinking, man. It's like the team thing we were talking about before. I really feel like unless you're invested in sports or just a competitive person at heart, you're gonna, how could I say this? Him wearing that red hat, offends so many people, and it's, rightfully so, but it's kind of like the Confederate flag thing. I could see what he's trying to say when he wants to hijack something and give it a new meaning, because once it has a new meaning for people, now your mind is out of the past.
Isn't that the whole reason for why, they say only we can use that word, like we're change the meaning of it?
Well, but
by
I think
making
it's
it
also
something
referring
like
to the fact where, like, Kanye a couple years back or pretty recently tried to, like, I think sell shirts or stuff at his concert that had the rebel flag on it, the Confederate flag, and his whole mentality behind it was, well, if we retake back the power and retake back the message, then it doesn't mean
sounds
what it
like
used to
sounds
mean.
a lot like Clerks too.
Okay. Again, what I want to say is, Kanye, read a goddamn book.
Start with this book. Start with this one and actually read the 13th Amendment.
At a very basic level, I understand where you're coming from.
I mean,
I also think that, like, the whole premise of not thinking is dangerous because we're creatures that have gotten to where we've gotten to for good or bad, and there is a lot of good in this world because we thought, because we kept pushing, because we kept thinking, like, okay, we got this far, how can we get over here? Like, how can we connect that? How can we get to the moon? How can we create, how the hell are we reaching people right now through airwaves in different countries in different time zones? Because people sat there and explored and let their minds expand. And yeah, maybe to an extent we've forgotten to kind of internalize that back to ourselves and worry about ourselves and our well-being and our health and whatever. But we can't neglect the outside world either, because we're social creatures. We don't live in a vacuum. Like, anyone, like, you put someone in happens in prison when you get put solitary confinement, right?
I thought you were gonna say rape.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you go crazy, right? Because we're not meant to not have external communication or stimuli in our lives. So I get what you're saying. Maybe there's too much of the opposite right now. Maybe there's too much of the external, and we're forgetting to kind of refocus back on us. But the whole concept of not thinking or thinking too much is dangerous. It's kind of like that argument that the right has now, where if you went to college, if you're educated, if you like to read a book, if you think you're kind of smart, well, fuck you. You're yuppity. You're yup. Whatever the fucking term is. It's a bad thing. When is it a bad thing to be smart?
Smart is just such a crazy term, because I don't think smart means what everybody thinks it means. It means to think for yourself, to drop everything that you thought, that you were told, and think for yourself in the moment.
But you have to do research to come up with a new thought.
You don't have to do any research to be smart.
What? That's ridiculous.
That's the smart I'm talking about. That's the smart that is going over people's heads.
Well, see, that's street smarts. That can be like, yeah, I understand. Don't
step
on a rattlesnake. That's smart. That's something you just know inherently. But nobody is born with knowledge.
No, but you don't know inherently.
You get knowledge.
One is in the background when the other one is present. You can't have both at the same
Listen,
time.
I think you're confusing smarts for instincts, because people have basic instincts. We have gut feelings. We have certain things that we just act on because we just, for some reason, we just know that that's what's best for us. But it doesn't always
I don't
work
think
out,
you're
because
giving
you get
yourself
people that
enough
shoot their
credit.
foot. You get people that
Yeah.
get eaten by bears. You get people that fall off boats
That's just
and get into
natural.
car accidents and fall and drop out of planes, or just drop dead from heart attacks because they think I can have this last burger. The point is, you smart. Yes, if you want to parse the word and get all semantical about it, yes, smart does not mean you have to go and read every book and blah 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 blah. Because Einstein was smart, but he wasn't particularly good at certain things.
Failed geometry.
So but there is a certain relevance in wisdom that human beings have with each other. It's why we for thousands of years had village elders. It's why we respect people that have been around a lot, because you assume that someone who's made it through life and survived long enough is smart enough to have survived, smart enough to get things done, and that's why we associate them with smart. But if you are a person who is handed everything, or who has so much excess that you can get away with doing whatever you want and saying whatever you want, because you will never really get in trouble for it, never really be held to account of responsibility for it, then I don't think you're smart. I don't think Kanye West is smart. I think he's savvy. I think he's probably a good businessman.
He's talented.
He's talented, but he's not a smart
He's not a
person.
smart person,
He
no.
is not a smart. He is not a smart man. He does not. If Donald Trump does not like to read. Donald Trump is probably a good businessman to a certain group of people. He's successful to a certain degree, but he's not a smart person. He's an ignorant person who doesn't read, who doesn't care about history, doesn't care why things are. He doesn't care about the reasons for things or why they were established,
And
why
so-
rules are here.
so-
that is what we mean when we try to say a smart person. We're not saying someone is
No,
stupid.
absolutely.
But-
When you discuss this topic, you have to talk about semantics. That's what the whole argument is.
So here's the thing. I'm gonna quote one of my favorite lines from one of my favorite graphic novels, which is The Watchmen. 438 pages or something like that. What happened to the American dream? It came true, right? So when we have the luxury to be on our smartphones and or to watch TV, or to drive our cars, or to get in our airplanes, or to sit in lay in our memory foam beds and watch our cable TV and use our internet. Those are all things that very well researched, well engineered, and people who dedicated their lives to education built for us. And now that all those things are here, and all the sacrifices that people made, and all the wars that people had to fight for us to get here, we can't sit back and say, well, fuck books, right? Because what's going to happen is we progressed, unless this is the height of our progression. We are going to go nowhere, or we will regress if we don't say that we have to put a focus on detail, on studying history, so we don't repeat the
It's
mistakes of the
incumbent on us
past,
to become better.
to learn, right? Unless, again, we're all just going to stay here and be dumb.
Look, people don't have to do anything. You really just don't. And Sergio is completely right. You don't have to do anything. Things will just keep happening. World will turn without us. But I mean, it just feels like it feels like that's what a human being is supposed to do. I feel like we're supposed to be active. We're supposed to be affecting our own futures. And maybe that, anybody could say, well, maybe we're not from this planet, or there's God and blah, blah. But I just feel like it is, if we formed a society, if we have a somewhat homogenous language and understanding of culture, if we have done all of these things, and we have built America for 250 years or 230 some odd years, why stop now all of a sudden just because we don't have to? Why throw books away and say that 300 years of enlightenment, of learning from the generations that came before us, and learning from mistakes and learning from history, why just stop that now just because it's not convenient to pay attention to the rising oceans or to the rising level of poverty?
By the way, you also don't need to go to college to be smart.
Exactly.
You do
No.
need to read and research.
Well-
And by the way,
Research doesn't mean reading a book. Research can
And
just
what-
mean, oh, that smells like flowers. I know what a flower
But
smells
what
like.
happened
I
to being
researched it.
well-rounded too? Because I mean, like people I feel like now are super smart, are very just specialized in a certain area. Like our founders and even people back, in the Renaissance in those days, they were architects, they were lawyers,
Yeah,
they were
specialization,
teachers,
because
they were
there's so many more
farmers,
people now.
they were, but that doesn't mean that you as a person should stop growing on your own. You get me? Yeah, maybe we can have a title, maybe we can have a degree. That doesn't mean that you completely then lose interest in civics, that you lose interest in music or in the arts or in food, or you get me? Like what happened to being a well-rounded person? I feel like it's not important anymore to be well-rounded. It's more important to be monetarily successful, have a nice car and a house, and say that that's how you made it. But did you really make it if you're not really growing internally and in yourself? And then how do you pass that on to the generations after you?
You form a shell company and you get the profits.
But that is also,
and that's what you end up with.
What I would call what we're seeing now, this divide that we see, the profit incentive of prisons and these tech companies, all of it, the speculation market that leads all of this is the eventuality of capitalism. It all leads to here, right? Not to get all like Marxist on you,
but
right?
you did.
But
Mark Johnson over here, everybody.
The point is, when you think about ruthless efficiency, which is just another way to hedge against inflation and make more money, automation is coming, and it all speaks to that.
Yeah.
And when all the big corporations are like, I was just talking with Dom, right? Dominic, somebody, one of my friends, he posted something on Facebook, which is true. Everybody's, and we didn't talk about this, Jeff Bezos raising minimum wage to $15 an hour.
16, I think, right?
Or 15, 16.
Whatever, yeah.
15.
Because Bernie Sanders shamed him into doing it, basically.
I saw that.
Everybody's clapping their hands, yay. But here's the problem. What they don't tell you is Amazon wants to roll out 3,000 cashierless stores by 2024.
And he's going to use it as a pretext to do it.
Exactly. And all the factories, they are moving towards automation. Uber says they're trying to help people out. No, they just wait until they can get self-driving
And you know what? The only way that's going to save people when that situation comes down is the government's going to come in and have to regulate and tax automation in order to keep people afloat and pay and make sure that there's a wage, a living wage. So people, as soon as you take away people's jobs, as soon as you take away their reason for living, their goals, you take that away, you take their money, and you take away their pride. That's grounds for revolution. That's exactly why the word sabotage it's from when automation started happening in the 17th and 18th centuries, and they would take their wooden shoes called sabot in the Dutch Netherlands, and they'd throw the shoes into the windmills to break them, because those machines, these windmills, were all of a sudden doing the work that 20 or 30 people used to get paid to do.
No, but this is the point that I'm making. When that happens, and it's coming, and the only response is for the government to create an automation tax, right? That tax will now be either used to make using a robot more expensive than a human, which then it's just a cost-benefit analysis.
That's why tariffs exist. It's like a
don't
tariff. You
hire.
put a tariff on automation.
But,
that's why we do it for aluminum and steel.
Someone else is going to come around and just say, hey, just give people money.
That's exactly what I just said.
Right, so that's the universal basic income, right?
And there's a couple places that are trying it out.
That might as well be the vouchers that Karl Marx talked about. So again,
maybe he was ahead of his time.
It all comes back to that. Like,
I mean, that's kind of what the Soviet movement was about. Automatons, everybody working together, one unit.
The eventuality of capitalism effectively will be communism, led by a bunch of oligarchs.
Well,
shit.
So
I mean, think about it.
We have one last topic to hit real quick, and
I think that might lead to a second Renaissance, though.
It's possible.
Well, so
you need another Renaissance.
Said this, right?
I think
he thinks in the future, when that does happen,
we
will live in virtual worlds, right? Because that technology will progress, and we will create art and things in a second life to sort of make an income and sell digital goods in a VR world.
That's pretty cool.
And it's happened
sounds
before.
Like The Sims.
Yeah,
or it sounds like Ready Player One.
Yeah,
that's true too.
I haven't seen the movie yet. I haven't heard good things. Yeah,
the book is better from what Gina says. Get the Audible book. The last topic was just because of the Supreme Court and Brett Kavanaugh is being held off. So right now there are 8 people in the court, which means there could be a tie. 30 some odd items on the docket, and one of them that caught my eye. Well, no, Madison versus Alabama. That is something that I'm sure is easy to pick a side on. You know, that case boils down to a person's on death row for murder, and they've debilitated so much in their health, they've developed dementia, and no longer remember that they committed a crime. Is it a violation of the 8th Amendment to still execute them because they don't understand why they're being executed? You can put yourself on either side of that. That's not what I'm really going to talk about, because that is something that's cut and dry. This is Gamble versus United States. It was decided by the 11th Circuit, and it goes to the Fifth Amendment's double jeopardy rule. And right now, the Supreme Court is upholding a doctrine of separate sovereigns. So the federal government and the state government are separate, equal sovereigns that can go after whatever they want. So this case deals with someone who's been prosecuted for a crime by the state, and either on acquittal or after the case finished, the federal government moved in and charged that person with the exact same crime in the exact same place and manner. Everything about the case is the same, except it's the federal government, and as it stands, that's perfectly legal. You can do that. Senator Orrin Hatch just, I believe this week or today, submitted an amicus brief citing that he believes that the idea of federalism that set this up is obsolete now and needs to be overturned, because too much federalization of criminal code is happening, and states and people can't get the job done they want, and they can't prove that they're separate, and states' rights and blah blah blah. I agree, ironically enough, with Senator Hatch. I think
Republican from Utah, right?
Yes, I believe that the separate sovereigns doctrine should be overturned, but I do understand the ramifications this has. It could possibly mean that if anything comes from the Mueller investigation and someone is charged with something, that they could get off. And we've all been counting on the Southern District of Manhattan and New York state law to come in and clean up the business. But if this doctrine is overturned, then a person could then claim Fifth Amendment violation and be protected, and they're done. So I do believe that if it's going to be overturned, that the court should say that the state and federal government should work together to decide who prosecutes for the crime, and whoever
the federal government would win every time.
Yeah, but the federal government can defer to the state. They can say, we're not going to prosecute it. You guys can. We don't feel like it. We don't have the resources or the time.
Okay, well,
you
what
have
happens
better
when
access.
Trump gets indicted? Then what?
Well, he wouldn't be indicted necessarily.
No, my point is, let's say they charge Trump with something and he's convicted.
Yes.
And then the federal government says we'll take over, but that federal government will be led by Mike Pence, and they'll say, you know what, we're just taking this one over.
The point of it is that they're saying that if a case is tried to completion, a pardon is not completion. Dropping charges is not completion. It doesn't. Even if they overturn this, those don't count, and it won't violate double jeopardy rules to prosecute a person again. Just like with Cosby, they could have stopped after the first mistrial, but they decided to go back again. It doesn't violate double jeopardy unless you get an absolute ruling, an acquittal or a guilty verdict.
I think if it's not broken, don't fix it.
Well, as it stands right now, this guy was charged with a crime. He was acquitted by the state. And the federal government is now moving in because he got away, and they're like, well, anybody now is subject to this kind of stuff. If they really want to put you behind bars, they're going to do it. I don't know the specifics of it. I know the listings on the docket, and I saw this one, and I was like, wow, this really could have long-term ramifications. I still agree, just a little bit slightly to the majority that it should be overturned, but I can see why it's there. I can see how state prosecution might falter sometime, and you need the federal government to step in and retry the case. But it is a violation of double jeopardy, in my opinion. Would this mean that if
you are convicted by a state, then the federal government can overrule that conviction?
No, they will just run another trial against you for the same exact crime.
No, but he's saying the opposite way. Like, let's say the state convict you of something, can the federal government step in and then say, no, they're wrong?
No.
We're acquitting you of it.
No.
Okay, well...
No.
Still, that's taking rights away from the person. Like, you either have these laws or you don't. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, this is just... Oh, no, I lost it.
And then you have to look at what the conviction rate of federal prosecutions is, and that's not fair to the citizens.
I also think that it's up to, at least the way that our law system is built is that the state or the federal government, whoever is the prosecutor, has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. We don't have to prove our innocence when we're in court. They have to prove that we're guilty. So if the state court couldn't do it, unless the federal court can step in and present some evidence or something that wasn't clearly shown in the initial hearing or sentencing or whatever, then why would they even take it up? I think right now it hasn't become a problem. Maybe theoretically it could be, but I think for the most part, in an unpolarized world, it's worked just fine. People don't step in unless they have to, and then it can even work for the benefit. What if the state does botch something and let someone go free that shouldn't be free, and then the federal government steps in and fixes that mistake? Why not? Right? Like, I think it would more work in that way than in
but
a
here's
negative
the problem. I can't. So there was.
And that was a really good movie, Double Jeopardy, by the way. That was what Harrison Ford and Ashley Judd.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good movie.
So here's a question.
Hmm.
So there's this riddle that's in the Stormlight archive books, which you should, if you're done with Game of Thrones, you should definitely.
I am. I need new books.
So
throw them my way.
The riddle asks. It's not a riddle. It's just really like a thinking experiment. So you are charged with getting justice for the king. There are 3 people who could have committed the murder, right?
Okay.
Now, you know for a fact that one of them did it, right?
Okay.
Now, the question is, each of them say they're innocent, right? So you have the choice. You either execute them all, because you know you'll get the killer. You let them all go because you don't know who actually did it. Or do you just lock them all up?
Wait, but I thought you said we know who did it.
No, you
Cut
know
the
one of
baby
them
in
did.
half.
Oh, I know one of them
One of
did
the
it.
3.
Yes.
Oh, is this like the whole trolley car thing?
I don't know what that is.
The experiment from a Good Place. You haven't.
Oh,
got
yes.
that
Yes.
episode?
I know
Like
what
3 people instead of
Right.
one.
Right. But
Isn't that like moral absolutism or whatever that's
yeah,
called?
but
Like,
the difference is because the answer in the Good Place, sorry, was that you kill yourself instead of those people. What I'm saying is, do you, to save the 2 innocent people, do you let the murderer go free, or to save future potential murderers, do you kill all of them?
oof.
I don't know. I think that's those lines are too.
I think
strictly drawn.
I value life more, but yeah, if you're letting a murderer go away, then he might commit. I don't know.
Gina says burn them all.
Who
That
said
I
that?
say,
The Mad King.
watch out, Joe.
Who said that? Gina? Damn, Gina.
Well,
Damn, girl. Damn, girl.
I don't have an answer for that
But
because
yeah,
I don't.
that's
I
tough.
brought that
I don't
up
know, I
to
think it's
ask
too
about
broad.
this
I was waiting for
situation,
Joe's answer.
right? So the question is, do we now let the federal government come in order to save or to prosecute a potential criminal who got off from the state system, right? Or do we put everybody at risk who gets away from the state, who was innocent, but then the federal government can come in with their high conviction rates? So it's the same kind of thing, but with less murder.
I just think that that Orrin Hatch in his brief was correct in saying that the federal government has put too many crimes on the books and everything is too broad now. Where it used to be states would prosecute this types of crimes and stuff like that, things that matter to them, and the federal government only prosecute things interesting.
There are too many
to the federal
laws.
government. There's too much going on and too much overlap.
Like when you can't walk into a public freaking federal park because after dusk, like we live in a free quote unquote country, but we can't take a walk in a park.
Freedom isn't free.
Free, yeah.
Need a $1.05. So, last words for everybody. My last word is going to be that Mike Pompeo has canceled a treaty with Iran, stemming back to the 1950s, that recognized our consular status, so that our ambassadors are recognized there, and there's our ambassador.
Oh, so we're pulling in Cuba?
Yeah, we're saying that the ICJ had ruled that the United States must lift sanctions on Iran because they're unfair and they targeted at nothing and there's no reason to. And we're like, no, we don't care what ICJ says. And also now we're canceling this treaty. So fuck the rest of the world. Also, North Korea's been stealing tons of money from everybody's ATMs. They hacked like everything. They've been stealing millions of dollars. They stole $83 million from the Bank of Bangladesh. Sergio,
But
any
you
last
do that when
words?
you got nukes.
Any
Nothing
last
really.
words? You don't have any last words?
Last words.
Famous last words.
Try to understand Kanye's newfound spirituality.
I'll tell you how to understand it. He's selling an album.
And Black Jesus.
Selling out.
Black
And he
Jesus
is
all
selling
day.
an album, which I hope is better than Ye.
Okay.
Jay, last words? Any last words?
That's
Before
not
I get
ominous at
shot.
all.
Yeah, that's not ominous at all. Right? We're not gonna make it home.
Yeah.
I'd like to dive a little bit deeper in a later episode in the conversation we were having about automation, where that might be going, how far, and
Automation?
yeah, automation. Sorry, and
Automation is a good movie title.
All right, thank you. And yeah, I'm
Automized
tired, so I
Nation.
feel alone.
Automized Nation. There we go.
Oh,
Everybody,
nice.
you should check out Assassination Nation. It is an allegory on where we are in America today. Check it out. It's weird in the first 20 minutes, but I promise you, if you want to know what's going on and see sort of a satirical vision of where we are, it all takes place in one town, Salem. But check it out.
Cool, send it to me.
Crazy.
Anyway, so yeah.
Still in the theaters.
Okay, so for
Don't take your kids.
my last thought then was this: I just got back from Cuba for work, and I was having this really good political discussion with this guy who's been like at all levels of education over there. He's been a translator, he's been in the government and everything, and they were talking about the new president and the new changes they're trying to make, and he was saying how now with all the connection and all the internet, the Cuban youth is really in tune into what we do in the U.S. and what the Western world has, and you know how comfortable we live and how much excess we have, and that they want that. So the question now over there in Cuba is, okay, what are you willing to give up for it to kind of bring capitalism in? And what they've been finding out is that no one wants to give up anything. They got very comfortable with, you know, free education, and even if the food's shitty, even if it's not enough, they get the free food, everything. So no one's willing to give that up for the perceived excess that they think they want. And do you think that might ultimately happen if we end up in a world where we don't work, where we're given money, and then everyone thinks that we might become some artist or some poet or some thinker, but not everyone's built that way? And what happens to society when we have 7 billion people not working, not doing anything in their daily life? What happens to them? You know,
Elysium.
Yeah, I mean, what's the point of making art if nobody is doing something else?
Digital art in VR. We're gonna be in Ready Player One, and I get to be in my Gundam suit.
All right.
You do really
I guess
want
that's
that
it, but that is food for thought. Just we could discuss
What
that
is
later
your
on. Sit on that.
final thoughts,
So
Mr.
Logan,
Johnson?
by the way, you gotta show me.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so
I suggest watching the show.
We actually talked about it a little bit because when I went on my diatribe about us turning into communists. But yeah, that's it. I wanted to say something about Cosby. Like you can believe what he did or what he didn't do, but the idea that he had a sealed deposition and they just ignored that is very, very troubling.
We're talking about it on the right here.
Yep.
Right? Like,
there's a lot of people that need to be in jail that aren't, but why is he? Not saying that he shouldn't be.
But I'm saying take out
the
innocent or the guilt from it, though, right? Because how many people go into, like, if you make a deal with the prosecution and they now say we're tearing up that deal, that means the prosecution has no integrity. And if they have no integrity, then how can they have authority? And how many people make deals with the prosecution? How many people get their records sealed off of a guilty plea? If they could just turn those things over now, just because.
Slippery slope.
You know, and I'm not saying you don't send Bill Cosby to jail or send him to jail. What I'm saying is you do not have an signed agreement with the state's prosecutor. And now you're just saying, well, there's a new state's prosecutor, so we don't care.
It's crazy. That's
very scary. And again, Bill Cosby's rich and famous. What happens when they do it to somebody?
Listen, that's the same thing Donald Trump did to America. But you know, Barack Obama did this, that, and the other thing. Got TPP, Paris Climate, all this stuff. Iran nuclear deal, and then Trump comes in and just like, oh, I'm the new guy. I don't care.
Can I read something real quick before we get off?
Yeah.
Not to be an alarmist, and not sure if this is true, but it is John McAfee from the whole, virus software or whatever. So he put on Twitter, the presidential alerts, they are capable of accessing the E911 chip in your phones, giving them full access to your location, microphone, camera, and every function of your phone. This is not a rant. This is for me, still one of the leading cybersecurity experts. Wake up, people.
Okay, first of all,
that sucks.
He's dropping.
And you were wondering how he got your number.
McAfee is dropping somewhere on an island sniffing cocaine right now. Just Google John McAfee like murder and see what comes
shit,
up.
Really?
Yes.
Can I just say I'm a little scared that I'm gonna be hurting if Bill Cosby kills himself, because the reaction everybody's gonna have is
Bill Cosby's not gonna kill himself.
Rot in hell, etc. Yeah, he might be killed in prison or kill himself.
No.
All right.
He's gonna go. He's gonna go where Martha Stewart went. He's gonna chill out for like the last 20 years.
I also find it interesting that
he's not going to penitentiary.
I do find it
He won't be showing
interesting
up at Oz
that,
anytime
like,
soon.
of all the Me Too stuff, the black guy's the one that goes.
No,
to
I know
jail.
it's bullshit. Why isn't Kevin Spacey in jail?
Or Harvey Weinstein.
Or Harvey Weinstein? Well, I mean, he might be in jail soon. That motherfucker.
And again, it's not about defending or
No,
or
I know,
blaming,
I know,
but
I know,
like
it's just-
we
Then
really,
again,
that was
none
a
of these people
sealed
that we're talking
deposition.
about ever drugged someone in order to sexually assault them.
They just sexually assaulted them while they were sober.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that concludes today's
Brock Turner.
show. And we thank everybody for watching, and we appreciate Sergio coming in as our special guest. For anybody out there watching, you're more than welcome to comment and message us if you want to be on the show.
Yes, and thank you, Gina, and thank you, Courtney, and thank you, Asul. Did I say that correctly?
Saul.
Asaul.
Saul.
We call him Blue because
thank
that's
you,
how it sounds like
Ronnie.
Asul.
Thank you, Rick, and everybody else who tuned in.
Cool,
Gary.
cool.
So
Gary from Indiana.
So we did today just because yesterday I had a fundraiser I had to go to. So normally we will be on Tuesday nights at 9:30.
Don't plug. Don't plug.
We
Don't
appreciate
plug.
everybody
Don't plug.
coming and showing themselves next week. Maybe we'll be talking about Automized Nation. I'm thinking about making that the title for the next show. But very much appreciate you all coming by. If you're watching on YouTube or rebroadcast, please still comment. Subscribe on YouTube. Share and subscribe on Facebook. We will really appreciate it. So, Jay, where are they going to find you
We
at?
already did that, but Jay.
Oh, did we
yeah.
add Jay
Did we?
Martinez on Twitter, right?
On the Twitsters?
On the Twitter, I forget.
Does
I don't
anybody
check
ever
my
tweet
Twitter
you?
anymore.
Jay Martinez Jr.
Junior. I don't even check anymore, to be honest, guys. Just follow
Oh,
me on
that's
Facebook. Jorge Alberto.
fantastic
Yeah, me too.
advertising.
Do you even exist?
I don't.
Sergio, where are people going to find you?
Right
Reddit.
Here, man. Right here.
I'm right there.
No, I kind of like YouTube. I like videos. I like
I'm
Spotify,
wherever you are, closing your eyes.
You know.
And I will still be looking for long lost family members in St. Louis, where I'm told that there are some dubs waiting for me. I'm not sure exactly.
Wow.
Or on
Oh,
the
without fail.
Joseph So Swald at the Twitsters.
And Steve?
But you're more likely to find me on Facebook because, just like Jay said, I don't really check the Twitter. What about Mr. Johnson? I heard you got a new Snapchat account.
No, you didn't.
I was hacked before,
Stock
and now
is
you have it.
definitely plummeting.
Yeah, I know. I own it.
Unlike
Yeah.
Tesla, it's the time to buy in.
Oy.
So you can find me on your favorite social media network, as long as not Snapchat, at Steve A.M. Johnson. And unlike these guys, I actually answer my tweets.
I'm gonna
I'm
form
mean
a
and
fake
tweet.
I'm sorry, I'm not too
Russian
cool for
bot
school.
called Steve PM Johnson.
Only if
Zoya.
it's- only if
Steve
it's
at
a-
night. I'll
only if
tweet
it's-
only when you're asleep.
Steve at night.
I like-
Steve PM.
He's gonna be a Russian hotbot.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Well, thank you again, everybody, for watching. We appreciate it.
Peace.
Tune in next week.
See you next week.
Thank you.
I will be here.
Yeah, and we're all gonna live in VR.
Yeah. Well, we kind of are. I mean,
Excellent.
it's not VR.
True.
It is.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Cool.
Hugs, not drugs.
Hugs,
Oh.
but sometimes drugs.
I missed the reverb.